critically ill child is hospitalized, our Ronald McDonald House keeps families together every step of the way. Staying at our house within eyesight and walking distance to Children's Hospital, families ensure their child is never alone. Advocating for their best care, there's also plenty of time for connection with lots of hugs and bedtime stories. In nearly 40 years, no one has ever received a bill, whether families stayed for a few nights, several weeks, months, or even over the course of years. Thank you.
Good morning, crew. It is the middle of July, like smack dab in the middle. It is July 15th. This is Wednesday. It is hump day. Thanks for joining me here on Peaks to Plains Weather. I am Matt Meister, and hope you're having a good week. For those of us east of the mountains, it has been dry. We have had some storms over the hills. And there are some subtle changes that we'll talk about here the next few days, and then a little bit of a bump in a couple different ways for the weekend. And then next week is looking certainly more active for more areas. So that's something we need, and certainly good news. Thanks for starting your day with me here on Mornings with Meister on Peaks to Plains Weather. I'm going to begin with our high temperatures. Yesterday almost hit 100 in Montrose. Denver was in the mid-90s. Canyon City hit 95 as well. And then over the eastern plains, we were in the low to mid-90s, just depending where you were. It's been humid out over the plains for sure. Colorado Springs sitting at 87 yesterday on another dry day in Colorado Springs. Let's take a look at what's happening outside this morning here on Peaks to Plains Weather. And the sun is up in Falcon. It is 56 degrees. Folks making the turn there onto from Woodman to Highway 24. Humidity's up a little bit in Falcon, sitting at 70% this morning. The same sort of look in the Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy, where the temperature's 54. A little breeze out of the north at 5 miles per hour. So a real pretty start to the day. Actually, a little bit warmer in Woodland Park than we are at the Air Force Academy this morning. Canyon, we're sitting at 61, just to the east of town here at 4 Mile Parkway. Humidity at 55%, so a little bit lower than what we saw in Falcon with a breeze out of the west at 6 miles per hour. Pueblo, good morning. Thanks for starting your day here on Peaks to Plains Weather. It is 63 and a breeze out of the north at 10 miles per hour. So there's not a lot of wind out there this morning. We are as warm, though, as 71 in La Junta, and as cool as 48 in Salida. We're actually running a little bit lower than Alamosa and Gunnison this morning, which doesn't always happen. Usually the middle of the big mountain valleys outside of our high, mountain areas are some of the spots that are a little bit cooler. Notice how the dew points are still up over the eastern plains, though. In the upper 50s, it has been sticky over the plains here the last couple of days, for sure. As temperatures have warmed up into the afternoon, we've kept the dew points up. As I've been noting to you, usually dew points that high kind of have us on edge for thunderstorms, but in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, conditions just aren't right, and we haven't had much in the way of clouds around here for the last few days as well. We are going to get to our short-term forecast here in a little bit, but I want to welcome a special guest this morning and kind of get right to something that I am honored to bring you, and it is part of an event that has changed the fabric of our community in southern Colorado. And I want to welcome Yvonne Davis this morning, who has a home in Beulah, and she found out within the last couple of weeks here that she lost that home, and I want to bring her in this morning. Yvonne, thanks for joining us here on Peaks to Plains Weather. I appreciate it very much. I'll start with this. Thanks for making time for us. I appreciate it. And thanks for being willing to share your story. How have things been? I know you got back to the property earlier this week. Tell me about how that was for you and your family during this time of loss.
Well, since I did find out on the fourth day, I evacuated on Monday, June 29th, and by Thursday, I received confirmation and a picture that told me the house was gone. There was nothing left. Mm. And so I did have time to adjust to that reality before seeing it in 3D. And you have time to go through the grieving process. And, I went through all the steps pretty quickly. And I noticed one of the most interesting things was it was almost like my memories were like going through a 3-day, like a virtual reality. So I could see things in the room, when I'd been there walking through the rooms, and then I would think, oh, that thing is lost, or that other special object is lost, or the tools that we were using to complete the cabin, the construction on the cabin, the materials, just each little item would come up, and I would have to release it, to feel my grief and release it. And so by the time I arrived physically at the location, it was a somewhat different experience because I had already done my personal grief, and I could start to kind of take in the scope of this disaster scene. And the most grief that I felt really when we went into Beulah was seeing other people's homes, and just, my heart went out to everyone. So many people are devastated by this fire. Yeah. And, just taking that in for the first time, and then going up to the property and seeing how I suppose it's the fire department that went in with bulldozers and scraped the dirt roads to get access, because my home was on the mountainside on the south end of Beulah. Okay. And that's where the fire came from when it first hit Beulah. Right. And I think that was the hardest hit area, right, because all those mountains that you can see in the background there when you move to that southern end of Beulah were just completely obliterated. And all the structures were incinerated. Everything, it just looks like a moonscape now. And so walking on that road, remembering how green and lush it had once been. And I did notice that it was extremely dry this summer, that it was noticeable. I mean, it stood out so starkly to any other summer I'd ever seen, how dry it was, how dusty it was. And it was just, you know, the whole landscape had become a tinderbox. And then you add in, you know, somebody strikes a match and the wind blows and there's no stopping it.
Yeah.
So I think more than anything, because I had already grieved the loss of my home and various objects that were special to me and the value that was lost, and accepting the fact that there's no insurance to cover this because they won't cover those homes anymore. And so it's a total loss. And, you know, just taking all that in over time and then coming and looking at this awesome landscape. That's the best word I can say, is you're just absolutely in awe of what nature can do.
Right.
And that's all I can say.
Yvonne, let's see, how do I ask this? Well, given that there's no insurance, what does the process of moving forward look like?
Well, it's been a full-time job for me ever since Thursday. The first 3 days I was living in a fantasy land. I was praying a lot, and I do think that's important, because that's the way that we call on a higher power to bring us peace and acceptance of whatever is going to end up being reality. And so that's all I could do, really. And then it became on Thursday, once I settled into the reality. Okay, this is the new reality. I need to figure out what I'm going to do, and it became a full-time job. Every single day, up by 4 a.m., doing research, calling people, emailing people, more research, looking for resources, talking to neighbors, finding out, you know, what do you know, what are you going to do, and also contacting people that I know, and, you know, just basically every contact I have, I reached out, pulled together friends, communities who were willing to support me in my time of need, either financially. So I have been able to do some fundraising on GoFundMe, nowhere near what's needed. It's barely a drop in the bucket to clean this mess up and deal with the aftermath. But, you know, people came to help either financially or just like showing up with food, because my friend that I'm staying with right now, we were like zombies after a while, you know, and just having someone bring over food was an enormous relief.
Right, isn't it interesting how those seem like the mundane tasks of day-to-day life, they get so much harder when something like this happens. Yvonne, how long have you been in the area?
This property's been in my family since 1962, and I used to go there as a child and spend the summers there. And so I have lots of very happy memories from that. And then around 2009, I started going every year and began living there. But I could only live there half the year, the warm half, because once it started to snow, you couldn't get up the road. It was impossible.
Okay.
So the other half I went to Arizona.
Okay. When you went back, did you see any of your neighbors or have a chance to interact with anybody else? And if you did, how was that?
Yes. I saw two of my neighbors. One, when we walked the lower road, which is the east access to my property, I saw one of my neighbors in the distance standing with someone just overlooking the, catastrophe that's been left behind, their home, their vehicles, everything. And I wasn't able to talk to her because I was with the escort, I don't know if that's the fire department or police, but everyone who lost their home went with an escort. And I didn't, I needed to go look at my property. And so I didn't want to disturb her either. So I went up to the property and looked at it and did the filming. And to document everything, especially for the fundraiser, I need to document absolutely everything. And then I was able to talk to one of my other neighbors, which was the closest neighbor on that mountain. They came over and we talked about what we're going to do. And the fact is, they're not going to rebuild, and I'm not going to rebuild because there's no insurance. I mean, that was a loss of $200,000 within a few minutes, and there's no insurance to replace that. So you just have, unless you've got an extra $200,000 just lying around, and you can afford to lose that, because without insurance, we can't get it up there. It's just not an option anymore. And so if you can afford to build a $200,000 home, and then maybe next year a fire comes through again, you don't know. But I don't have that kind of money, so that's not an option for me.
So when were you not able to be insured? Like, how long ago did that happen?
I'm not exactly sure what year it was, because it was my father who at the time was taking care of those things, and he told me a few years ago, he said, we need to do fire mitigation. We can't get insurance on this place. That's our only option. And we did fire mitigation for 2 years.
Oh my God.
And then the Oak Ridge fire came through in May of 2023. And they were able to put that out fairly quickly, relatively speaking. And so, we just sigh of relief.
Right.
And then Beulah started to do fire mitigation, and they worked on fire mitigation for 2 years. And here we are now in 2026, and the fire was so intense that when it gets that intense, there's no amount of fire mitigation that can really help. You can't stop a force of nature like that.
Right. No, I think that's an important point. And I would say, the odds are, if that mitigation hadn't been done, there's probably more loss of property. So, there's a positive there. But I know for you, that, like you said, sometimes there's just nothing as human beings we can do. Yvonne, if someone is hearing you this morning and they want to reach out to you and want to help you, how can they do that?
Well, the best way is I'm trying to make lemonade out of these lemons, and so I've decided to document the whole process of cleanup and recovery and try to learn, how do people cope with this, and share that information with other people. I'm going to be doing that on a YouTube channel, and people can find it by just typing in youtube.com/@YvonneDavis.com.
Okay. So Yvonne, I am so sorry for your loss, and I am grateful for you sharing your story with others, because I've found myself over the last few weeks trying to put myself, in position of somebody who lost their home from this. We have experienced this in Colorado a number of times. It's part of our climatology. So I think hearing the story and being willing to share that, I'm hopeful that it continues your healing process for you. I just want you to know that my heart goes out to you, and I'm grateful for you sharing some time this morning. And I want to wish you the best moving forward. And so please let me know, you have my cell phone number. Please let me know how you're doing and if there's anything we can do to help. But I encourage everybody to follow along with Yvonne on the YouTube page. Just search Yvonne Davis on YouTube. Is that YouTube page up and running right now?
Yes. I did a search on YouTube for Yvonne Davis, Aspen Acres Fire, and it didn't come up with my YouTube channel, so it's better if people can just type it into the address bar.
Okay.
At Yvonne Davis.
Okay. Well, I will share that on social media too. So Yvonne, thank you again so much. And, so many of us in Southern Colorado and across the state stand with you during this time. And again, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell my story.
Of course. Thanks for being willing to share. Like I said, I appreciate it. Well, that was Yvonne Davis. Some of the impacts of the Aspen Acres fire that continue, not just in the short term here, but in the long term as well. Very sweet. I think there are some people that maybe aren't as far along in the grieving process as she might be already. She, was keeping things together and dealing with things in a very admirable manner. But like she said, sometimes there's just nothing you can do. Let's jump into our short-term forecast here as we move through the next couple of days. Firefighters are still working on the Aspen Acres fire, and I'll give you some updates on that fire before we close things up this morning. Yesterday, we had some thunderstorms over the mountains once again. Notice how they were kind of moving off to the southwest. And so in the cities, over the plains, we are just not going to have an opportunity to catch some storms here over the next several days. The thickest moisture with the monsoon continues to be off to the west here, and we're starting to see the pattern shift a little bit as this area of high pressure is moved from Minnesota, kind of moving toward the western part of South Dakota now, over the Black Hills. And we'll see this high take a few days, but eventually reestablish itself over Colorado here heading into the weekend, and that'll change our weather up a little bit in a couple of ways. On the eastern edge of this monsoon plume, over our mountains, we're going to find that the moisture continues to actually thicken up for the next couple days. So when we hit our afternoon and the storms develop again, they'll still be moving off to kind of the south-southwest and not at a very fast clip. And as the water increases, there will be a threat for some moderate to heavy rain with some of these storms. And so you can see here that, Colorado Springs, Pueblo eastward, we're not getting anything, but over the upper Arkansas River Valley, Park County, Fremont County, the Wet Mountain Valley, San Luis Valley, and the southwestern part of the state, we're dealing with some thunderstorms that as the sun goes down, we lose the heating of the day, we lose the storms, and the sky usually clears out for a lot of areas into the mornings. Not just today, but even into Thursday and Friday, the wind picks up. It's a reflection of the large-scale pattern down to the surface as the large-scale pattern kind of enhances our daily mountain plain circulation. So that's the benefit we've got. At least this sticky air in the hottest part of the day is moving around. I think it'll be up between 15 and 22 miles per hour, and it usually continues into the early part of the evening. Our numbers aren't going to change a lot. Mountain areas with more clouds around, our highs come down a little bit, but Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Monument, Fountain, Canyon City, Pueblo West, our numbers don't change a ton. We're still in the low to mid 90s on the higher end of things. And so it's sort of a, ho-hum weather pattern here. Even into Thursday, storms fire up in the same places. I do think there's a little bit better chance of catching a storm the next couple of afternoons on the backside of Pikes Peak than we ended up with yesterday. We had a nice one over the parts of Teller County on Monday. And again, you see a couple of these storms with some reds showing up in there, the potential for some heavy rain. Now, we will take the water for sure. Aspen Acres fire, I think water chances are probably off to our west here through the end of the week. But maybe we get some cooling wind that might actually not be good news for firefighters if we get some outflow to move through, because it makes things a little bit erratic on a localized scale. But we need the water, and we'll take it. We'll also have to keep our eye out for fire starts due to lightning. And again, through the end of the week here, there's just not too much of a change. But there is a change on the horizon. And that change is going to include the chance of some moderate to heavy rain for more areas. Take a short break. We'll talk about our extended forecast. Also an update on the Aspen Acres Fire early on this Wednesday. Coming up here in just a little bit. You're on Peaks to Plains Weather. This is Mornings with Meister.
At Phil Long Ford Motor City, we've been around for 80 years. That's like 560 in dog years. Basically, we're the top dogs of Colorado. And thanks to our deals, selection, and service, we've earned some pretty loyal customers. And our GM Mark, he's the most loyal guy I know. Even after I chewed up his shoe, it was delicious.
Great trucks, amazing deals, and belly rubs for dogs. Come see why Colorado drives Phil Long Ford in Motor City. Hey guys, where's my shoe?
This is John May, General Manager of Petrale Roofing, up on another customer's roof doing a free 21-point inspection. If you'd like us to take a look at your roof, give us a call today, 719-375-8773. We'd be happy to take a look and see the condition of your roof. Petrale Roofing, we're a Diamond certified TAMCO installer, which means we can offer a industry-leading 25-year workmanship warranty to give you peace of mind in the storm. Call Petrale Roofing, 719-375-8773. Schedule your free inspection today.
Emergencies are unpredictable, but you don't have to be unprepared. Peak Alerts sends you targeted emergency alerts in real time for evacuation orders, law enforcement activity, missing persons, and more. Choose up to 5 locations that matter to you, like home, work, and school, so you know what's going on and what to do next. It's free, easy to set up, and designed to keep you in control. Know first, act fast. That's the power of Peak Alerts.
I'm Catherine.
And I'm Dewey, here with another water-wise tip.
During summer, do you know why we water up to 3 days a week?
To make the best use of me.
Exactly. It builds deeper, stronger roots and makes your lawn more resilient.
Also, use the cycle and soak method. Try shorter cycles with breaks in between to reduce runoff.
And in spring or fall, you can water 1 or 2 days per week. Be water-wise and your lawn will thrive.
Now that's water-wise. Learn more at csu.org/waterwise.
All right, our extended forecast, this time of year, there's an area of high pressure that usually sets up over the United States. It moves around a little bit, but it is the driving force of our monsoon. And it's been kind of parked over the middle part of the country. You see the clockwise flow around that. And that's where most of the stormy weather has been. It's been clear underneath that high with sinking air. But on the west side of it, you end up with this, southerly tap of flow from the Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico, Baja down here. So you're getting moisture from 2 sources that ends up rotating northward over the United States. This high is in the process of moving, and it's going to be a multi-day process here, but it's going to shift off to the west and eventually end up over Colorado as we head toward the weekend. And that's going to bring a subtle shift in the wind flow and push the moisture a little bit farther to the west over our mountain areas before we see an even bigger pattern shift as we head into next week. So the thickest flow has been over Arizona, over Utah, and that's where there is a chance of some severe weather today. We had a haboob in the Phoenix area earlier this week and a couple days of storms. The Mogollon Rim has had some pretty good rain, and we will see that continue for them. And our storms will continue to kind of move off to the southwest here as we move through the next couple of days. However, as I said, we head into the weekend and things change up a little bit. One of the ways we'll see that is that we will see this high continue to shift off to the southwest, and it's going to bring our flow in from the northeast. And as that kind of changes toward the weekend, what it does is it's going to take our chance of storms here over the mountains and shift them a little bit farther to the west. So Park County, Teller County, and probably even the Sangre de Cristos, I think our storm chances after Friday will go down a little bit. So you can see that high reestablishing here over Colorado as the weekend. Remember, there's clockwise flow around this. And so we'll be pulling some drier air over the plains into Colorado. We've still got the monsoon out here, and so when the high can park here for a couple of days, we'll start to recirculate it underneath that, and that will help to bring the chance of storms back to the east as we move into next week. The other thing that happens is watch the northern plains here. Your eye, as I move into Monday and Tuesday, catches a little kink in the flow riding the ridge. That's going to bring a cold front into eastern Colorado. There'd been some conflicting signs about that, but that looks more likely now. And that should help to give us some fuel in the low levels of the atmosphere, push some of that moisture up against the hills, and combine with this monsoon plume to keep us active here as we head through a good chunk of next week. So it is going to be a different week compared to what we've had this week when everything has been over the mountains. So as we head into Monday and Tuesday and we get that front to come in, we're going to get more action here up across the Front Range. And there's potential for heavy rain across parts of Colorado. I mean, I'm coloring things starting at ½ inch here, and you see in the southwestern part of the state, maybe we get several inches of rain. Of course, the computer models have bullseyes in different spots, but they're both picking up on a pattern change here. And even into the back part of like my extended forecast graphic I'm going to show you next weekend and beyond that, not only do we see some cooler air signals because of that cold front over the northern plains, but we look into the last few days of the month and we still have signals that we are more likely than not to be above average on precipitation. So that's some good news here for the back half of the month. This is kind of when we get the peak of the monsoon, back half of July, early part of August, before things begin to transition. So if you hang tight here along the Front Range through the weekend, that is going to feature a bump up in temperatures because, we're shifting the moisture farther to the west. Then we get that change. Cooler, stormier. The details on a day-to-day basis, we've got to take those as they come. But when you're looking long-term and you're pattern forecasting, it is different. And given the slow movement of storms this time of year, moisture up top, moisture at the surface, there is potential for heavy rain. Now, in advance of that, over the plains, we're going to get triple digits this weekend. So we'll bump up a little bit from where we've been this week. But then there is some relief that's on the way. So I think there's good news there and something that we should, kind of look forward to, I think. The burn scars, the current burns are going to be problems. They are going to give us flash flood warnings. They're going to give us debris flows. For the folks like Yvonne that, are trying to clean up and trying to decide what to do, and even for people who didn't lose homes and can get back into some of these areas, there's a flash flood risk. And, we've seen other fires, the Junkins fire, you go back in time, Black Forest fire, where these things were issues that people had to deal with, and it's kind of a, 1-2 punch here. But we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. And we will diligently do that here at Peaks to Plains Weather. Okay, I want to check in with some of you here early this morning. And let's see. Teresa says, good morning, everyone. Karen says, so many prayers to those who have lost. I agree with that. Susan echoes those thoughts. And Kathleen is echoing that as well. Jim is checking in this morning. He is drinking his dad's coffee. I've got my American Classic coffee mug this morning. I have it filled with Sequoia this morning. It's one of the medium roasts. It's really, really good. I checked in with Spencer yesterday, ran over to the house to check in with him, see how he's doing, kind of coordinate with him getting out to some of the farmers markets that he goes to. I'll do some broadcasting from there. That'll be fun. And Ann says, hey, I love American Classic coffee. It is the best. Jim also asking, how will the change next week impact drought conditions? That is a great question, Jim. It takes a long time to get into a drought. Usually takes a long time to get out of it as well. But man, do we have drought conditions, because here is the latest drought monitor across Colorado. The deepest drought is in the middle part of the state where the ski resorts had a ski season. Breckenridge, westward, up toward Vail, up toward Aspen, northern part of the state. We've also got pockets of the deepest drought in southern Colorado over the southern Sangres. Just to the north of the Arkansas River, there's a pocket of some pretty deep drought as well in the southeastern corner. So we'll take whatever water we can get next week. But like I said, there's multiple days where you'll have a chance, and there's a threat for some beneficial rain as well. So hopefully we can make a dent in that. We're not going to erase it to answer your question specifically, Jim, but I think we'll take any steps in the right direction. Crew, that is it for me here this morning. I want to tell you this. My family and I are going to head out for a little getaway. We're going to take a cruise for my daughter's graduation that she had from high school in May. And I'm not sure how the internet service, I've never been on a cruise. So I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know how the internet service is going to be. So I may not be able to do the live mornings with Meister. If that's not the case, I'll make sure that I have fresh video content up. I'll be given content from the ship. I'll be working from the ship. And so, I'll let you know if there's not going to be a mornings with Meister. But Rachel will be here in the afternoons most days, and she is rip-roaring, ready to go. Also want to let you know, before I go, that Peaks to Plains Weather is one of the sponsors of Parks and Recreation Month in Colorado Springs. I was at City Hall yesterday. I'll do some posting here this morning before we head out for our trip about that. There are 2 events that are on the way. One of them is coming up this Friday on the east side of town, and there is a silent disco. There is a movie. It is at the Hillside Community Center, which is going to be a really, really fun event. It's free. There's food trucks, family friendly. They can't tell you what movie they're going to show, but I know it's a good one, and a silent disco as well. Have you ever been to one of those? Like, where you're jamming and somebody else might be jamming to a different tune, so it looks like you just don't have rhythm together, but people are doing different things. And then the following Friday on the northwest side of town, in the Pinyon Valley Park on the 24th, there is a concert for the community with local favorite Sofa Killers. Peaks to Plains Weather is going to be at that one. I can't, obviously, this week. I'm not going to be here. But we're going to have a booth set up, and we'll help you download the app. We're going to have a green screen where the kids and you can come out and do weather. So we'd love to see you out at that. We'll post that on social media where those events are here later today. That's it for me this morning. I've got some things to wrap up, and then we've got to get on the road. Cheers to you, my friends. Thanks for being part of Peaks to Plains. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, you should. Please tell your friends about Peaks to Plains Weather. You can find us on Roku, on Fire TV. You can check in with the 24-hour channel from the easy chair or the couch in the living room. YouTube, lots of you are interacting with us on there. My best tool to keep track of you and help you and keep your family safe when the weather is busy and when it's high impact is in the weather app. Keep your location turned on in there. We can give you a digital shoulder tap, let you know things are happening. That is it for me here on this Wednesday, my friends. I appreciate you greatly. Special thanks again to Yvonne Davis for telling her story. I am so grateful that she was willing to do that. Man, my heart just goes out to her and to everybody that lost the homes. There was an official transition this morning, a little more than an hour ago, as the Northern Rockies Incident Management Team, team number 6 from that group, assumed control of the fire from the Alaska Incident Management Team, who did some incredible work along with all the crews on the ground. Still about 1,900 firefighters fighting the Aspen Acres Fire. Let's talk about that before we get on the way today. I forgot about that. It is currently at 99,000 acres. It has grown about 700 acres at last check. It is 36% contained. Haven't really added to the containment areas. There are a couple locations of the fire that are of most concern to the firefighting community that are working this off to the northwest of Rye along North Muddy Creek. This is the spillover area that got to the west of Highway 165. They have taken the dozers as high up the hills as they can. Crews are digging lines down the slopes. They're working with private property owners to do some reinforcement there. The concern is if the fire got east of those lines that they have been working on, that there is a lot of fuel here for the fire to burn moving toward the Rye area. So they want to keep it out of there, and they're working really, really hard to do that. St. Charles Peak, the fire has been advancing a little bit. That is to be expected. It's some difficult terrain. They're continuing to work on that with some air apparatus. Beulah, lots of folks are back in there. We heard from Yvonne, who lost her home for sure. They are trying to keep Mingus Ranch protected. They have been doing some fuel removal operations. Some of that has been including some burn. So see here where the more sort of established lines of the fire are back in here. They have done some burning and some fuel removal in these areas to try to take some of the fuel if the fire makes a run this way to try to slow it down. On the north end of the fire, they're feeling pretty good about things. The heat keeps coming down. There's been some heat down in the ground. There are some junipers out ahead of the fire in this area. We don't have official containment here, but hopefully we get that in the next couple of days. And again, a new management team is on the way in and has now taken control. So that's it for me, crew, this morning. Last little check here of the social media comments here. Debbie says, have a great cruise. I'm excited for it. I know some people love cruising. Salty water sunsets. Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really fun. My friend did say, or my son did say, he's my friend too, but my son did say last night, he's not looking forward to having to run as much as he has to run. He hates treadmills. And I'm like, dude, if you're going to be on a treadmill, looking out over the ocean from a boat sounds better than like being in a gym here. I mean, he doesn't hit the treadmills here. He hits the trails. There is a little track on the boat. It's only like 300 yards though. So if you got to run 11 miles, you don't want to do that much. But he almost, I think he said he'd rather not go. What's wrong with that child? And Julie says, have a great day. Thanks for the Plains weather. Great job. Blessings to your day. Julie, blessings to you as well, and blessings to all of you. That's it for Mornings with Meister this morning. I appreciate you joining me. Have a great day.
Ramos Law serves people. We make the world a better place. We put people ahead of anything else. That's my name on this business. It's my face on the billboards. And what you don't see through any of that stuff is you don't see my heart. We've built this family, this Ramos Law family, in a way that will include you. And hopefully by the end of our representation, you also feel part of the Ramos Law family. I look forward to taking care of you.